Welcome back. Well, keep an eye on the market. It's again revisiting the first 5-minute low, 17,747 on the Nifty. IT really is a problem point for the market. The Bank Nifty, of course, is still resilient, and the mid-cap index also. But the weight of IT index is really pulling down. The Nifty 1.5% down on the IT index. Now, let's move on. Insurance regulator IRDAI has mandated that all insurance policies be dematerialized. This means that all new policies issued from December 2022 will have to be in demat form, and by December 2023 all old or existing policies will also have to be brought on demat platform. While in the long run, of course, this is beneficial for insurance companies, the depositories who would enable this process are the big beneficiaries. NSDL, CDSL, CAMS and Carvi are some of the big depositories. So let's speak to one of them to try to understand what this would mean. Anuj Kumar, MD and CEO at CAMS, is now joining us. Anuj, good morning. Thanks a lot for joining us. So you tell us first thoughts on this move from IRDAIs, and how much would this act as a trigger for your company?
So good morning, and thanks for having me over on the show. If you see insurance as one of the last standing bastions of paper repository of insurance policies, all of that is going to change. It will not just change record keeping. It is not just that investors and the insured will now start carrying policies in demat form. That's one change. But the way they interact with the insurance sector overall, the way they apply for claims, seek service, all of that is set to change over the coming years. And like you've seen in other parts of capital markets, banks, etc., I think the repositories will emerge as very strong for both reasons. One, of course, there is a large mass of, upwards of 25 crore policies which will come up for dematerialization in the market. On the general insurance side, there is a large mass which will come up for fresh issuance, again on the demat side. And then all these several tens of crores of insured population of the country will start interacting with insurance companies more on the digital and electronic form, which is a long-term change. And like I said, it has been a long-standing bastion, but the last bastion, which will now slowly go away.
So can you help us with some numbers, Mr. Kumar? What could the revenue potential for the depositories be? Because according to our math, it's close to about 4,000 to 5,000 crores. Is that a reasonable assumption?
There are different numbers going around. I mean, one thing I'll tell you is that the industry will see some degree of price erosion, because as the mass increases, obviously every player will try to grab share. For the last 10 years, it's been a bit of a sleepy market. The market could be anywhere from 500 to 1,500 crore, depending upon what final realizations we gain. This will largely be on the record keeping side. And then over a period of time, as service formats come in and service starts getting paid for, I think it'll add a layer on top. So it is uniformly positive for the sector and will help us scale our insurance repository business several times.
Mr. Kumar, just a couple of points. With regards to opening of these accounts, right? Because they have to be opened. It's a separate account which has to be opened for these policies. What's the cost? We picked up between 50 and 60 rupees. Is that correct?
The insurance account really costs nothing. When you bring policies into the insurance account, that is the time when we start charging. So it depends upon the intensity with which the user is using it. The insurance account just comes in, and then once you put policies and dematerialize them, that's when we start the charging.
Correct. No, so to dematerialize one policy, what's the cost?
It's today, let's say, in the range of about 20 odd rupees, but it would come down over a period of time as we see that realizations come down and the mass builds up. Everybody will try to grab share. Like I said, it's been a bit of a slow market overall, but given the potential now, we will expect some degree of price erosion to happen.
Rupees right now for dematerializing a policy. I'm talking about an insurance policy. That's
correct. Think of it as steady state. Let us say all the conversions of the 30 odd crore life insurance policies happen. All the fresh issuance of the 20 crore plus GI policies happen. You could have a market which has upwards of 50 crore policies sitting inside these demat accounts. If you take average realization of between 10 to 15 rupees, then this could be a between 500 to 800 crore market by revenue for the insurance repositories, just for the carrying cost of the record keeping of the demat policies. That's one component. And like I said, as the service formats come in, as people start paying for the insurance policies, repeat premiums, they start applying for claims, there could be lien marking, there could be loans against insurance policies. All of those will be paid formats like they are in other industries, which will be a complete layer on top of what I'm talking about.
Okay, all right. So thank you for that figure, 15 to 20 rupees, and maybe even lower. Who knows, right? I mean, eventually per policy. Now, yesterday we reported, our colleague Yash Jain reported that LIC wants to start its own depository for this purpose, right? I mean, they are, of course, by far the single largest player. What would that mean? And if LIC is able to do this, and they'll go to IRDAI to get the go-ahead for this, and they're able to do it, what stops others from doing it?
When you look at any marketplace like this, it is largely led by the consumer and the consumer making a choice. It will always be an e-insurance account which has policies coming from various issuers and various carriers sitting in a single account. And therefore, entrenching or tying it very closely to a manufacturer, we don't believe is going to be a long-term model at all. In the long term, the repository business and the policy issuance business are two separate businesses, and that is the belief we hold. We are also watching the space to see how this turns out eventually, but we believe that our ability to create an attractive proposition for the consumer comes out of his ability to carry a number of policies, both life, non-life, coming from a number of issuers in the same account. A single manufacturer can never do that.
But it's the single manufacturer is by far the single largest player. That's where it makes it becomes meaningful, right? I mean, that's 70% of the market.
No, it does. But think of it this way too: that every competing life insurer then, if their policy goes into a single manufacturer's repository, have the risk of exposing the data. It's almost like you being able to look at your competitor's data. So there will be various issues which will have to be eyeballed closely before a decision comes up on this. Like I said, we are also watching the space closely. But from a consumer optimization and service capability, we believe that a non-tied to a manufacturer repository is perhaps the best architecture for the market.
Okay. I was reading a report from Motilal Oswal which said that for your company, the next big trigger is the account aggregator business, just like UPI was for payments. But here, many players are applying for this license. So what kind of competition are you seeing here? And overall, what kind of growth or what kind of revenues do you see from this segment?
So account aggregator today is a license on tap. There are 5 licensed entities. There are 5 or 6 with in-principle licenses, or they will get there very soon, which means this is not a market where you should expect to see very large shares. You'll probably see leaders with teens kind of shares, and it will perhaps be fragmented between 8 to 10 players at a steady state. Fragmenting it any further obviously will not make any sense because the tail players will be very, very small. As far as the use cases are concerned, you've seen the numbers. Just from a loan origination perspective, there is a stark figure of 5 to 6 billion loan originations happening in the country. It doesn't mean so many loans get issued, but those are the requests that the investors are making when they start. Similarly, from a personal finance management perspective, even if you believe that there are a couple of crore investors in the country who deserve weekly attention in terms of how the wealth manager or the advisor is treating them, the market for coverage is very, very large. It's several billion instances of account pulls. And that's not just one revenue segment, because on top of that, there are alternate credit scores, there are analytics, there is a complete personal finance management advisory service, which will start with the account aggregators and TSPs. We believe it's going to be a several hundred crore market. Now, it's difficult to quantify it right now, like I said, as competitive intensity goes up and as prices stabilize. But from a consumption perspective, it looks that it will be a very large market.
So you said there are 5 to 6 billion loan inquiries and they don't get converted. But what would the conversion ratio be? I mean, just trying to understand what could the market size eventually look like?
So think of it as approximately 1:5. There is no specific industry number, but think of that as a contraction. When I start applying for a loan, I perhaps download 5 apps and send an inquiry to everyone. I will not borrow from everyone. I'll borrow only from one, but I start 5 instances. The sigma of those 5 adds up to about 5 billion.
Okay, all right. We'll leave it at that. Mr. Kumar, thanks a lot for joining in and speaking to CNBC TV 18. That's CAMS, and the market, by the way, is still under quite a bit of pressure. The Nifty is down about 200 odd points. The Bank Nifty is down about 315 points. So today definitely is a day that we're seeing in the red. In terms of individual stocks, there are still some stocks that are bucking the trend. Mazgaon Dock, Shoppers Stop, IndusInd Bank, Patanjali Foods, EIH, couple of names that are up about 5 to 7 odd %. Mitesh is with us to give us his view. Mitesh, not looking like a good market at the moment, but tell us about the individual stocks that you're looking at.
Sonia, so I was talking about this in the morning that today's dip may not be necessarily an opportunity to buy. In fact, looking at the weak indicator setup, I think there's a chance that we might see a slightly bigger correction. And the levels could be closer to about 17,500, 17,500, 40 zones. So while there is some support around this level of 17,650, 700, there was a gap over there. But I think eventually there's a stronger chance of us at least testing 17,535, 40 zones. So not buying as yet. On the stock side also, I have in fact sell calls. TVS Motors after a long time is giving first signs of correction. So keep a stop at about 1,040 3-year and I look for target of around 995 on the downside. The other one is Godrej Consumer. That's breaking down to some kind of a gap. So that's a sell. Keep a stop just above 925, which is about ASI, and 880 should be the target on the downside.